The moment I shined my flashlight onto the roof of my house, I realized the scratching above my bedroom wasn't an animal, because staring back at me in that beam of light was a naked man. And seconds later, he jumped off the roof and tried to kill me. My name is Ryan Caldwell, and this happened a few years ago when I was living with my parents outside Asheville, North Carolina. To understand how this happened, you need a little context. I had just gotten my wisdom teeth removed, much later than most people do. Most people go through that surgery in high school or early college. For me, it didn't happen until after graduation. The recovery was rough. The pain was so bad that I had to wake up every 3 hours to take medication. 3 hours of sleep, wake up, take pills, repeat. After a few days of this cycle, my sleep schedule was completely destroyed. I felt exhausted all the time, but somehow I still couldn't sleep normally. My body didn't feel right anymore. And then one night during that first week of recovery, something happened. I woke up around 4 a.m. It was time for another dose of medication. But after taking it, I couldn't fall back asleep. My room felt unusually hot. At first I thought it was just the pain medication messing with me. But then I realized something else. The air conditioner had stopped running. The room felt thick and uncomfortable. So I got up and opened my bedroom window. Cool air came drifting in, but sleep still wouldn't come. That's when I heard it. A faint scratching noise. At first I assumed it was just some normal outdoor sound. But the longer I listened, the stranger it sounded, like something dragging slowly across the roof. Then I realized something unsettling. The sound was directly above me, on the roof. The noise stopped for a moment. Then it started moving again, sliding across the shingles, like something crawling. At that point I figured it had to be an animal. Our house sits near a wooded area, and raccoons had climbed onto the roof before. Still, if something got into the attic, my dad would lose his mind. So I decided to scare it off. Besides, I was already wide awake. I walked through the house to the garage and grabbed one of my dad's heavy Maglite flashlights. Then I stepped out into the backyard. My bedroom sits under the lowest section of the roof, so I pointed the light up there first. The beam swept across the shingles. Nothing. I moved the light again. Still nothing. For a second I thought the animal had already run off. So I started walking along the side of the house, trying to light up more of the roof. And then something moved, just barely, right at the edge of the beam. I snapped the flashlight toward it, and my heart nearly stopped. Standing on the roof was a man, completely naked. For a split second he froze in the beam of my flashlight, like he had been caught doing something he shouldn't be doing. Then I screamed, and the moment I did, he started moving, fast, unbelievably fast. He sprinted across the roof barefoot like the light itself was burning him. He headed toward the edge above my bedroom, and suddenly something clicked in my head. If he jumped from there, he would land right next to my bedroom window. That meant he might have been trying to get into my room. That thought sent a rush of adrenaline through me. So instead of running inside, I ran around the house to cut him off. I was yelling for my dad the entire time. I hoped he'd wake up and come outside. I reached the back of the house just as the man crouched at the edge of the roof. He was about to jump. Even from the lower section, the drop was at least 12 feet onto concrete. There was no way someone could land that without breaking something. But he didn't hesitate. He jumped. His body slammed into the concrete with a horrible thud. For a split second, I thought he must have shattered his legs. But then he stood up, like nothing had happened, and charged straight at me. Before I could react, he tackled me to the ground. His hands immediately went for my face, clawing, scratching, trying to dig into my eyes. He was grunting and breathing like some kind of animal. I kicked and fought, but he was unbelievably strong. I felt warm blood pouring down my face, and in that moment, I truly believed I was going to die. Then suddenly, the back door burst open. My dad came running outside. He grabbed the man and yanked him off me, shouting and swearing. I scrambled to my feet just as the man twisted out of my dad's grip. He was covered in my blood. For a second, I thought he would attack again, but instead, he ran. He sprinted across the yard, jumped the fence, and disappeared into the woods. Within seconds, he was gone. My dad and I just stood there, listening to the sound of branches snapping deeper and deeper into the forest. Then silence. The rest of the night was chaos. My dad rushed me to the hospital. I had lost a lot of blood, and doctors had to stitch several deep cuts across my face. They also gave me multiple shots to protect against infections or diseases the man might have carried. The police investigated, but they didn't find anything. The woods behind our house stretched for miles. Tracking someone in that darkness was impossible. But a few days later, my dad discovered something disturbing. The scratching we heard on the roof wasn't random. The man had actually been trying to dig his way into the attic, like an animal trying to burrow into a nest. To this day, no one knows who he was or why he chose our house. But sometimes I still think about something that terrifies me. If I hadn't opened that window, I might have never heard the scratching. And that man might have been inside our house, waiting for us to wake up. The moment I pulled back the curtain and saw a man's face pressed against my window, I realized someone had been standing outside my house the entire time. And the worst part, he hadn't been trying to get inside. He had been trying to get my attention. My name is Evan Parker, and this happened earlier this summer while I was staying at my parents' house outside Columbus, Ohio. Before I tell you what happened that night, there's one important thing about the house you should understand. The layout is unusual. Instead of a normal porch leading directly to the front door, our house has what feels like a covered outdoor hallway. You walk between two sections of the house before reaching the front door itself. Technically, you're outside, but it feels almost like being inside already. And my bedroom sits on the first floor right next to that hallway. From the window beside my bed, I can actually see anyone standing at the front door, though usually they'd have their back to me. When I was younger, I used that window like a hidden camera. Whenever someone rang the doorbell, I'd peek through the curtain to see who it was before opening the door. Delivery drivers, friends, neighbors. It became a habit I never really lost. And that habit might be the only reason I realized something was wrong that night. At the start of summer, my parents left town for a week to visit relatives in Tampa, Florida. So naturally, I took advantage of having the house to myself. My girlfriend Megan came over to stay for a few days. My parents are pretty traditional, so they definitely wouldn't have approved. But they didn't need to know. The first day was great. We watched movies, swam in the pool, and basically just relaxed. Neither of us are big party people, so that was enough for us. The second night, though, things got strange. It was close to midnight. We were lying in bed in the dark talking before falling asleep. That's when I heard a noise outside. It sounded like something scraping across pavement. I raised a hand to Megan and told her to listen. The sound was coming from the driveway beside the house, and it was close. After a few seconds, I realized what it sounded like. One of my dad's trash cans being dragged across the driveway. Animals get into our trash sometimes, so I figured it was probably a raccoon. Still, hearing something moving around your driveway at midnight when the house is dark is unsettling. I told Megan to stay in bed while I went to scare the animal away. Then I walked through the house to the front door. I switched on the outside lights. They lit up the porch and yard, but barely reached the driveway, so I stepped outside. The moment I did, everything went quiet. No more scraping, No movement. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. When I walked toward the driveway, I saw one of the trash cans tipped over with garbage scattered around it. The other two were still against the garage. Strangely, I couldn't see any animal anywhere. I quickly picked up the trash, put it back in the can, then moved all 3 cans into the garage and locked the door. If something had been digging through them, that should stop it from coming back. Then I went back inside and returned to bed. Megan was barely awake. I kissed her forehead and lay down beside her. Within minutes, I drifted into that half-asleep state where your brain is still aware of everything. That's when I heard it, a soft tapping sound. At first, I thought it was part of a dream, but then it happened again. Tap, 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 metal lightly touching glass. My eyes opened, and I suddenly realized where the sound was coming from. Outside my window. Slowly, I got out of bed. My heart was already starting to race. I walked to the window and gently pulled back the curtain. In the dim porch light, I could see someone standing at the front door. Their back was facing me. They were lightly tapping on the glass, over and over, like they were waiting for someone to answer, which made no sense. Every light in the house was off. Anyone standing there should assume nobody was home. Then the person started turning around. I instantly ducked below the window. My heart started pounding so hard it hurt. I stayed crouched there for nearly a full minute. Finally, I forced myself to look again. Slowly, I stood up. I pulled the curtain back just a little and instantly regretted it. A face was pressed against the glass, only inches away from mine, staring directly at me. I screamed and jumped backward, ripping the curtain closed. But in that split second, I saw something horrifying. The man's skin looked pale and stretched tight across his face, like it had dried out in the sun. Dark veins ran along his temples and his lips were cracked and split open. But the worst part was his eyes. They were wide, unblinking, and he was smiling. I stumbled back onto the bed, still yelling. Megan woke up instantly. I told her someone was outside. Then I locked the bedroom door and called the police. They arrived about 10 minutes later. Megan and I stayed inside the room until the officers knocked. The police searched the house and confirmed no one had broken in. Then they searched the yard with flashlights, but the man was gone. Eventually, they told us to call again if he returned. The rest of the week passed without any more problems. When my parents came home, I told them what happened. They assumed it was probably just someone wandering through the neighborhood. For a while, I almost convinced myself they were right, but recently something changed. Over the past few nights, I've been waking up randomly in the middle of the night, and every time I wake up, I hear something outside that same window. Soft footsteps, occasional tapping, like someone is still standing out there, watching. My dad is installing security cameras this week, but honestly, I'm not sure I want to see what they might record, because the way that man was staring at me that night, it didn't feel like he was just passing through. It felt like he already knew exactly where my window was. The moment someone started violently pounding on my bedroom door at 3:08 a.m., I knew I wasn't alone in my house. The problem was, every door and window in the house was locked, and when the police arrived minutes later, there was no one there. My name is Daniel Harper, and this happened earlier this year while I was living alone outside Fort Collins, Colorado. At the time, I was in my mid-30s and living alone in a small one-story house. No pets, no roommates, just a quiet place with a bedroom, living room, kitchen, and a tiny garage. It suited me perfectly. My job allows me to work whenever I want, which means I usually stay up late and sleep in. It's not the healthiest routine, but it works for me. And until that night, it had never caused any problems. That night I was working late, really late, It was already past 3 o'clock a.m. I was sitting at my desk in my bedroom working on my computer. The house was completely silent. No TV, no music, just the quiet tapping of my keyboard. I was completely focused. Then suddenly, bam! Heavy footsteps exploded down the hallway, fast, loud. The kind of pounding footsteps that sounded like someone sprinting straight toward my room in heavy boots. Before I could even process what was happening, bang, bang, bang. Someone started hammering on my bedroom door. Not knocking, hammering. The kind of violent pounding that makes the entire door shake in its frame. My body reacted instantly. I shot out of my chair so fast I slammed my knee into the desk and almost knocked my monitor over. My eyes locked onto the bedroom door. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. Because there was only one explanation. Someone had broken into my house at 3 in the morning. For a moment I stood completely frozen, waiting for the door to burst open, waiting for someone to charge inside, waiting for a fight I wasn't prepared for, but nothing happened. The pounding stopped. The hallway fell completely silent. No voices, no movement, nothing. It was like the whole thing had never happened. But I knew I hadn't imagined it. Then I heard something again. Footsteps, moving quickly back down the hallway, heavy, rushed, like whoever had been outside my door had suddenly changed their mind. That sound snapped my brain back into action. Someone had definitely been there. Without thinking, I grabbed an empty beer bottle from my desk and ran to the door. Adrenaline had completely taken over. I threw the door open and stormed into the hallway. And I started screaming, not just yelling, full-on screaming like a madman, partly to scare whoever was inside my house, partly to convince myself I wasn't terrified. I ran through the entire house checking every room, living room, kitchen, bathroom, garage, closets, every corner. No one, my house isn't big. There aren't many places someone could hide. Yet somehow the entire place was empty. Then something even more disturbing hit me. Every door was locked. Every window was locked. No signs of forced entry anywhere. The adrenaline drained out of me instantly, and the fear rushed back twice as strong. I ran back to my bedroom, slammed the door shut, locked it, and called the police. The next 10 minutes were the longest of my life. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the door, listening, waiting, but the house stayed completely silent. When the officers arrived, they searched the entire house with me. Every room, every window, every entrance. Nothing. One officer suggested whoever had been there probably left before I came out, but I kept telling him everything had been locked. He shrugged and said maybe I overlooked something. That answer didn't help, because I knew I hadn't overlooked anything. For the next week, I barely slept. Every night my brain replayed those sounds, the running footsteps, the pounding on the door, the sudden silence afterward. I even tried convincing myself that maybe exhaustion made me imagine it. But deep down, I know what I heard. Someone ran down my hallway. Someone tried to break into my bedroom. And someone ran away seconds later. But one part still doesn't make sense. Even if someone somehow got into my house and somehow escaped without unlocking a door, there's still one question that keeps bothering me. Why would someone break into a house at 3 in the morning, run straight to the bedroom, bang on the door like they were trying to force it open, and then suddenly panic and run away? To this day, I still don't have an answer. And sometimes late at night, when the house is completely quiet, I still find myself staring at that door. Because every once in a while, I swear I hear something in the hallway. Not banging, just slow footsteps, stopping right outside my bedroom door. If you enjoy true disturbing stories like this, make sure you subscribe to Recorded After Dark. And if you've ever experienced something you still can't explain, share it in the comments below. because some of the creepiest stories on this channel actually come from viewers.